Hey guys, Brent Hull Build Show, talking today about remodels and how to think about remodels, how you're going to do them, the form, the function, bringing it all together and making it look right. Today in the Build Show, come join me. Remodels, right? You notice that we've got a couple remodels going right now. We're doing that Dilbeck house, which is that French Norman crazy thing, which is so cool. And then we're also doing that John Staub house, which is a period revival house, both pre-1940. Now, there is a way to do a pre-1940 house and a way to do a post-1970 house, which are different. So I'm going to focus on the pre-1940. The first thing is there's going to be what we'll call the function, right? Just what is the program? What's going to happen? You'll hear it termed program. So there's the kind of the what, right? And what that means is, what do they want done? Do they want kitchen remodel? Do they want an addition done? What is the work that's going to happen? Okay, that's the easy part. The next part is the form, right? What does it look like? And so that is the trick, guys. And I see remodelers get excited because they've done a remodel and it's all about this addition, right? Or it's about a kitchen. But they're not thinking about the way a successful remodel is a remodel that it's been done so it doesn't look like it's been remodeled, right? It doesn't look like you have a small house and then a big shoebox on the back of the house, right? It's sensitive to what's going on, and that's the form piece of the thing that I want to focus on today. Now, and I'm going to use a word here, and I hope it makes sense, but it's narrative, okay? And that is the story of the house, right? What is the story it's trying to tell? If you've been following my Buildings and Brew, and we're talking about all these architectural styles as we go through different periods, there is a philosophy, okay? There is a story, there's a narrative that these houses have. The best example is after the Victorian period, during the arts and crafts era, it was a rejection of all that ornamentation, and it was a joy of the beauty of the wood, right? The simplicity, the way things were put together was beautiful, but it wasn't over the top, right? Which the Victorian had been. So there's a philosophy there. And what that means is that if you have a bungalow house and you're trying to restore it, or you're doing an addition, the moldings, the hardware, all those different parts and pieces need to match and make sense. We learned at North Bennett Street this concept called dating, okay? And I timestamp all these things when I walk through a building. I go, yeah, even the way this building is built, it's typical from the 1920s, right? And so there are elements and details that we put into our house that always date themselves. Smoked mirrors, right? Conversation pits from the 60s or 70s. Bright brass hardware from the 80s. Scraped floors from the 90s, right? All of these things date themselves because they were popular at a period of time. Think about if a flipper, right? We'll take an old house, we'll buy it really cheap, we'll tear out all the cool stuff, we'll install all new things, and we'll try to flip it. The problem is he's taken out all of the things that add character and charm to that house, and in my opinion, actually reduce the value of that property, even though it's been flipped, right? What happens is you walk back into that space 5 years or 10 years later and you go, oh yeah, they did this 10 years ago, right? They did this 5 years ago, because you recognize all that tile because that was the tile in the tile shops at that time. That was the hardware. That was that, popular hand scraped floor that they did back then, right? So there's 4 or 5 things that in my mind are really key in order to get it right. I think that, anytime you're talking about millwork, okay? So millwork would be stairs, right? Those are real definitive defining things. Moldings, okay? One of the reasons I work with Kukin and Windsor is I've designed their line of moldings to have historic precedent, have a story, have a philosophy. Cabinets are huge, okay? And then, you can get into other things like flooring. Tile tends to be an important thing, but those definitive things, mantles around fireplaces. But millwork, the reason I love millwork is because it is so defining. When I just got back to Texas from North Bennett Street up in Boston, I went to an architectural salvage yard, a friend of mine, and said, Ralph, what would a carpenter have ordered in 1920 if he wanted to redo a stair? And he said, oh, you need this book. And so he handed me this. This is the Universal Design book, number 25, 1927, filled with builder's millwork, right? Where there's pictures of stairs and how these houses would have been built, right? And so you can look at these and flip through these pictures and just see built-ins and other elements and other details. And so I love, the reason I build up my library, and I encourage you guys to build up a library so that you have resources, so that when someone says, hey, I want to do something, colonial or arts and crafts, you can actually go to your library and pick things up and get inspired, right? You can start looking at things and go, oh yeah, I remember that. That's what they used to do back then. The other thing that you'll find in these books are kitchens. If you look at kitchens in this book, what you find is pictures like this. Now, what this is showing us, if we study this as kind of time sleuths, is that cabinets go all the way to the ceiling, right? Now, when does that stop? Well, if you go to a 1936, 1940 catalog, you notice that the cabinets don't go all the way to the ceiling. So you'll notice that these are inset doors with exposed hardware. You notice how the configuration is, where the sink goes and how it goes over a window. There's big differences that happen in cabinets. Plywood doors happen after 1936, right? We see that in the catalogs. And so they're all on inset doors, there's overlaid doors. Those things change as you look at these catalogs. There's a lot of great clues in here if we'll study them. Now I want to talk about two projects that we're doing right now, that Staub house, the 1928 house, and the 1938 Dilbeck house, and how we're thinking about restoring and remodeling those houses. Okay, so we're working on that Dilbeck. This is a 1938 house, Charles Dilbeck. He kind of designed in the French Norman style, this rustic French kind of European styling with timber framing and low roofs, cute windows, all these fun things. Now, the scale, okay, the size of these rooms in this house are small. And scale's a big thing, because if you have a small, quaint house and then you put a big box in the back of it, not only does it look bad from the outside because you can see this big box towering over this house trying to eat it, right? It can also mess up the inside as you walk through this quaint scale and then you all of a sudden this huge volume. And so just be careful. Your client may, we go back to that form and function, your client may want 10,000 feet added onto a 2,000 square foot house, but I would caution you against that, because it's going to look like a 10,000 foot addition on a 2,000 square foot house. On this house here, what we've got a very small space, okay? So if I'm drawing out, we're going to do a master bath remodel, okay? Now the problem is the master bath area is really small. It's 400 square feet, maybe 500, maybe 450. And so what's happened is the original bathroom is here, right? The original toilet is here. There's a shower here, kind of a shower bath combo. The sink was here, and then these were built-ins in this area. And this is kind of what was called a dressing area. So what we want to do is we want to give them a shower. They don't need a bath, and we want to move this space around. Try to capture as much space as we can. Try to maximize the space, but not change the scale. Now, one thing to consider is cost. Like, let's say they only have a $15,000 budget. Well, in that case, we're going to leave the plumbing fixtures exactly where they are. But if the budget's bigger, right, if we have more money, then what we're going to do is we're going to try to go, well, we have this square, this space, let's try to maximize it as much as we can. So that would mean we might take in this closet here, right, move that into the bathroom, and maybe this becomes our shower, right? And this is our shower here now. And if that's the case, maybe the toilet, water closet, because it's kind of tucked away back there, we leave it there, but we bring this wall out more and we put the sinks on this wall and, play around with it this way, right? Any materials we put inside here, once we've figured out where the plumbing and everything's going to go, all the materials we put inside here are going to be sensitive to the era and the style of the house. So we're going to be looking for period tiles. I'm going to go to my library. I'm going to find period bathroom pictures and what they look like. We might try to go find old salvaged sinks or salvaged toilets so that it carries that aura and that feel. At the same time, open showers weren't really part of an historic house, but adding a shower versus a bathtub can really open up the space because you have glass shower walls. All of a sudden the space feels larger and you can play around with things like that. As we think about the 1928 house, we had a separate problem. We had this family room over here was added 20 years ago, okay? So the house was originally just this. What happened is that the original house had a kitchen that was completely locked off from the rest of the house by this little narrow opening right here that was probably, less than 3 feet wide. So the most important part of the house was actually tucked away in an area because the kitchens had become so important. And then look where the family room was, way down in the other end of the house. How do we tie these things together? Well, what we ended up doing is we pushed this wall out. Okay, this was the only addition we did to this house, was about 300 square feet of just pushing this wall out. What that allowed us to do is that then there could be this axis line, which we've talked about. There's the window on the end, and then there's this center line axis that ties these spaces together. So now going out into their backyard is so important. There's 2 means of access now, coming out this way or coming out this way. And moving this wall back wasn't a lot of square footage added, but it changed the way you're going to function in this house. Now people can come in and actually spend a lot of time back here. It's roomy, it's comfortable, the light's really great, and yet if they're entertaining, this whole space opens up and it moves out, right? Now, we are being very careful in that job to match moldings, match flooring. We've got wide plank flooring, oak flooring that is also pegged. In other words, we're going to need to go in and actually match the diameter of the pegging and do these false pegs in the floor, which was done in 1928, to make sure that everything matches. And so, kitchens typically in the 20s didn't have oak floors like the rest of the house. And so we are pulling that oak flooring back into here to tie everything together. Now, the preservationists might kind of push back and say, well, you're changing the historic character. Yeah, we are. There's no doubt we are. The challenge is that most people love the charm of an old house, but the fact is most old houses don't have an informal living area. The kitchens are very small and there's not enough bathrooms. And so in order to enjoy a beautiful house like this, it does require updating. Buildings do have to change. Buildings do have to learn. There's ways of doing that so that it's most effective. My goal for my clients is to try to build something so that in 20 years, it looks like it's always been there. Not so that you come back 20 years ago and go, oh yeah, they redid this, they redid this 20 years ago. The windows are a perfect example of that. We just restored these steel windows and they're freaking unbelievably beautiful. You go back and what they did is they took out all the steel windows and they put in a metal clad production window in there. Some of which are already rotting out, which is crazy, but we've got a window color we can't change now because they were metal clad, and we're kind of stuck with these windows that aren't very beautiful, that look like they're from 20 years ago, and it's kind of messing up the mojo of this house. And so I hope you're hearing what I'm saying. I'm trying to, walk you through our process of how we are trying to help clients build a better house and remodel better by the choice of our materials, by maintaining the narrative and the story of the house, and by doing things that are sensitive to the story of the house so that all these things blend together ultimately. Okay guys, good remodels. How do you know when you've done a good one? Well, following that philosophy, the narrative, the story of the house, matching moldings, matching hardware, matching tile, matching those decorative features, right? Finding these old millwork books that can help you learn from the past. Be a student of the past and you will build better remodels. Be sure to follow me on Instagram and Facebook, Hull Millwork, Hull Homes. Sign up for the newsletter. If you're watching on YouTube, hit the subscribe button. I'm Brent Hull. Thanks for watching.